Today, we're going to grade every single one of the last 10 number one overall NBA draft picks. We're going to find out which ones had lived up to the draft expectations.
And which ones are still carrying on the legacy of Kwame Brown.
Are you ready to talk the legacies of the greatest, brightest young stars our game has to offer?
Yeah, for some of these guys. It's crazy to think that for others, they've been in the league for like 10, 9, 8 years at this point. But yeah, in the league in quotes for a couple of these
for
players. For some. But yeah, damn. Yeah, no, I'm ready. I love legacy talks. I love historical arguments. Yeah, there's nothing better. And so I'm super excited to go through every number one overall pick from the last 10 years with you guys.
Yeah, man, as you guys see by the title, we're going to grade the last 10 number one overall draft picks in NBA history, the last 10, 2015 through now. I guess before we start, what's your criteria? What are we grading per se? How do you want to handle this? How do you want to explain to people, the rule book for what we're doing?
So when I was like younger, I kind of viewed the number one overall pick as like, oh my God, I'm literally drafting a Hall of Famer right now. I got the number one overall pick. This is incredible. And as you watch year by year as like every number one pick happens, you kind of start to acknowledge that it's just a good opportunity to take like a really good player. You get your pick of the litter for whoever's in the draft that year, but it's not a lock to like hit a home run on a franchise defining player. So my criteria, I just said, did we pick somebody who changed the course of our franchise in like a positive direction?
Yeah, exactly.
And for some of these guys, it's so early that it's a little hard to tell. But vibes wise, for most of them, I think you can gauge a general positive or negative vibe.
Yeah, I think we're grading it. Obviously, part of it is how good the player is, right? How talented they are compared to everybody else. But it's just the value you expect from number one overall pick, that opportunity cost. Did they provide that value to their team that drafted them? And we'll balance. A big part of it, I think, is the team that drafted them because you're grading them as a pick. But in some cases, guys went to other teams and they succeeded there. So we'll balance all that to find a rough idea of what their career deserves a grade. But it's a lot. We'll see. It's person to person. Let's get started. The first player whose career we have to grade today is Karl Anthony Towns, 2015 number one overall pick to the Minnesota Timberwolves. What grade does he deserve? Because he's such a mixed bag over the course of his career.
I actually liked this. I thought this was a really good benchmark for a good, solid number one pick. I think Karl Anthony Towns is that, where it's like, okay, we have a guy who's been a multi-time All-Star, multi-time All-NBA level talent over the course of 10 years in the NBA at this point. And it's been spread out. It's not like he made 3 All-Star teams and then fell off a cliff, production declined or whatever. No, every couple of years so far, he has made an all-star team, and he's been one of generally the 15, 20-ish best players in the world in those seasons. And I think that's like I think it's like a good benchmark for
15's a bit generous. 15's a bit generous. There's probably a couple years in which you could argue he's a top 15 player, but I think... So this year he's having a career resurrection. Let's go ahead and say that. If we're grading him based on the 1 year he's had with the Knicks so far, this is the easiest A in the world. But he did have a lot of years in which he was a good player. He is a star, which not everybody on this list is a star. But he wasn't as hyped. He didn't live up to the hype everyone thought he would to begin with. In like 2016, there were GM polls where they said people would start a roster with him over LeBron James and Kevin Durant. That was the hope at one point, and he didn't quite live up to that.
Yeah. So for me, I gave him a B+. I thought that like being a good pick, being like a very solid hit, that's like a fine. To me, he is well above average for most number one overall picks. Like you're not guaranteed to get one of the best offensive centers of all time, a guy who is consistently making like all league, all-star selections and stuff like that. But at the same time, you are correct that there was a ton of hype. And not only did he not live up to it, 2 other guys at his position in Jokic and Embiid like surpassed him very quickly. And so, and they're all in the same age range. So to see that happen for a guy who was so highly touted, you're like, oh, if we could have had one of those guys, that
he
would
honestly
been maybe
he
cooler.
kind of was supposed to be what Joel Embiid is. Like he was viewed as somebody that could be a superstar MVP level scorer. We know he could shoot. We know he has athleticism needed to attack the rim and do the 3-level scoring stuff. And as a draft pick, he wasn't a bad defensive prospect. People didn't expect him to be a negative rim protector. So the fact that side never kind of came along, we'll put him in B. I think could be graded as a B because if you're an all-star, you're not being less than a B. There's enough misses over the course of the years that simply being a very good player gets you a baseline level of respect.
Okay, yeah, I'm cool with B. The downside is that clearly has never been like a top, especially top 5 MVP level player, but really has never knocked on the door of top 10 discussions. Yeah. And so when you cut the bullshit of like, there's been so many bad number 1 overall picks and you start to like hold him to the all-star standard and compare him to the other best players selected at number 1 overall, he does not meet the criteria of like the cream of the crop.
I think it's a good way to phrase it. If you never had an argument for being a top 10 player in the world, you can't sniff A tier. Because I think with number 1 overall pick, you're expected to be very good. You know, the fact that you can say you made a couple all-star teams is like, cool. So you live
at
up
least
to it.
at this age, because maybe working our way towards, maybe there are some A tier guys that maybe necessarily haven't been in top 10 discussions, but they're so young that I gave them a good grade.
At least we can imagine it. At least we could theoretically say they'll be top 10. And listen, shout out Bodega Cat. Shout out this career resurrection with the Knicks. He's currently shooting the best he's ever shot from the field. He currently has like a 65% true shooting at this point in the career. They're really weaponizing his 3-point shooting. He's attacking the rim more than he ever has because he's a 5 again with max spacing. There's no Gobert clogging the lane. He's playing his game. Shout out all that. I love it. I still wouldn't say he's a top 10 player in the league this year at his best.
Yeah. And I also like when I'm looking at this, just like the general aura and like I don't know, contributions to your franchise's history, or at least the franchise that picks you, because he's not with the Wolves anymore. And when you look at the run they had last year, and clearly in retrospect, now that he's off the team, how important he was to one of their best seasons in franchise history, in that Western Conference Finals berth that they made. You're happy if you get a guy who can push towards a franchise defining year.
And he carried them
that.
Low key. He carried them through the mud for some really terrible years. A lot of coaches, a lot of dysfunction, several general managers, several star trades, or I guess there's one with Jimmy Butler that came and went. There's a lot of eras, and he was 10 toes and was the one consistent factor. No,
and a lot of
factor,
criticism for him as well.
He was consistently an inconsistent player, but he was consistently there. I'll tell you that. Yeah. He was available. He was trying real hard.
Oh, man. That's crazy. Yeah, so B, I said B+, firmly B tier. I feel like, and I feel like he's solidly, to go C would be too low, to go A would be too high. Yeah. And I feel like that's like easy.
But if somebody wants to go A because of what he meant to the Timberwolves for like a large chunk of their history, I'll allow it. I won't say you're crazy. You can put him A if you really, really want to. If you're a Timberwolves fan and you have the fondest memories of Cat,
that's the thing. If they were like, I'm a Wolves fan, he's A, I'd be like, dude, I get it. You know, he makes you happy. That's fine. Do what you want.
Listen, fond memories are fond memories. You got it. But I'll go B as somebody who doesn't really give a shit about the Timberwolves.
Hey, speaking of players whose fans and franchises have fond memories of them, who was drafted number 1 overall in 2016? I'm kind of drawing a blank here.
I think the fans that drafted this player also wish they could draw a blank. For 2016, we got Ben Simmons. What are you grading him as a draft pick, him as a player, his career? What grade does he deserve?
Okay. This is tough because for the criteria, did he send us like trending in a positive direction as a franchise? Overall, I still feel like he did, even though it's one of the most bizarre like draft to team departure stories of all time. Yeah. I gave him a C+. I feel like when you look at the first few years in Philly, 3-time All-Star, 2-time All-Defense, 1-time All-NBA selection, a lot of first overall picks don't get to that point. And for pretty much the entirety of his time in Philadelphia, outside of like the I'm not playing, my back hurts season, outside of that season, he was a very flawed player in the postseason, but he was an incredibly like talented, productive player in the regular season. And a lot of number 1 overall picks don't even get to that point.
Exactly. If Cat deserves a B for being not the best players in the world, but consistently there, Ben Simmons was also not one of the best players in the world. I think his best year, maybe you could say he was better than Cat. He was honestly close to a DPOY level defender. The best, I think the most versatile defender in the NBA that year. He was literally defending 1 through 5. He was a godsend defensively while being a lead playmaker with the ball in his hands, while having the ability to score at the rim. Maybe you want to say that 1 year of All-NBA Ben Simmons is the better version than what Cat ever gave you. But the fact that he had like a 4-year peak and it all fell off, and not only did he leave the team that drafted him in such a destructive fashion that I think Sixers fans don't look back at any of those good years with any type of fond memories because the departure was so dramatic. He can't be on the same level as Cat.
Yeah. And that's why, like, it's tough because it's the exact opposite of the Timberwolves Towns relationship, where it's like he stuck with us through the mud and he rode, like, we rode him all the. Oh my God, I'm trying not to, but there's so many different ways to be. Again, I don't know what else to say. Yeah, but like Timberwolves fans stuck with him through the mud. He takes you all the way to the highest heights. Whereas Ben Simmons, the second there's mud, it's like, I don't. We're done. There's mud. This is over. I don't want to go.
Actually, my Gucci sweater's getting dirty. I don't think I want any parts of this. Yeah. I think it's pretty clean over there.
And so it's tough because where Timberwolves fans have fond memories of Karl Anthony Towns, in all of the biggest moments of the 76ers like seasons when Ben Simmons was there, even if he wasn't like the direct reason for them losing, I feel like he sticks out the biggest in people's minds as like, yeah, no, he came up short and the 76ers couldn't win the playoff series because he was completely schemed out by a team that was featured. Like, he couldn't score on Trae Young and Kevin Huerter in the Hawks series.
He'll be remembered more as a scapegoat than he will be as like a successful draft pick. People are going to look back at him, and Sixers fans are going to be like, you know what went wrong with that Joel Embiid era? They tied his best years to Ben Simmons, and they'll blame him for all the weaknesses, not for the myriad of injuries, the myriad of failures from the GM perspective, pairing up the wrong stars with him after Ben Simmons. Fans in 10 years are going to look back and be like, that guy couldn't fucking shoot. I hated it. And he's going to get all the smoke.
But fans in 20 years, get on Basketball Reference real quick. They'll be like, yo, Ben Simmons was good for a second. And like, they won't be wrong. Like, the few years of real Ben Simmons that we got, I was like, I mean, I don't know. I didn't know as much as I do now. I wasn't as smart as I am now. Fucking genius who's never wrong. But like Ben Simmons, he dropped 40 on DPOY Gobert with like just dunks and layups. And I was like, you know, Ben Simmons could do most of what Giannis is doing if you gave him shooters and his own team.
Yeah.
He just has to play off Embiid.
It's not crazy. Honestly, the best version of Ben Simmons, like, I don't want to downplay it because we're talking about him being a C because the longevity wasn't there. The best version of him, I don't even know if he reached his ceiling. And maybe you could say part of that was people like to assign personality issues and they like to read into certain issues with players and their work ethic or whatever. So some people like to blame him for him not reaching his own ceiling.
Which we're going to do. We're going to do in 2 picks, by the way. Don't worry, guys.
It's coming. But I won't do that with Ben Simmons because he was tied to Joel Embiid and he was tied to being a Robin. Those two never fit together. They made it work because they were so fucking ridiculously talented, but they were never a good fit. There's never a world where you want to pair your star on-ball center with a point guard who can't shoot. Like, it never really made sense. They just figured it out. If he could have been the guy and ran a team, he could have put up a lot crazier numbers. Dude, people were, when he was drafted, remember Colin Cowherd was like, move over, LeBron. We're good. We're good. Ben Simmons got us. He's here. Magic Johnson has arrived. And he was ridiculous in that moment. Everyone was like, calm down. But the sentiment wasn't out of nowhere. A lot of people were viewing him as future one of the best players in the world.
Yeah. And it's just, God, I wish I had the sauce that Cowherd has in terms of like deadpan delivery, the most insane shit you've ever heard. Because really the way he says, we're good. You can go home now. Like, it's so funny. Oh my God. But yeah, Ben Simmons, masterclass in like, just because someone rocks at 20 years old doesn't necessarily mean you're going to see them at 26 be one of the 5 best players on the planet or anything.
Yeah,
so C+,
he taught us.
I'm cool with.
I think there's smart NBA fans these days know that what the term people use is progress isn't linear. That just because somebody is good right away doesn't mean they'll continuously get so that proportionally better every year in a like limitless sense until they're 28.
Except for Dalton Connect. Dalton Connect will do that, guys. Don't worry.
Shout out. Don't doubt him. We need to draft more 24-year-olds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Ben Simmons kind of taught us that sometimes there's certain limitations that you're closer to your prime than you think at a young age. So that's why those talks look so crazy in hindsight, but back then they didn't, because when you're 19, I can easily envision you getting better forever and ever and ever, because I haven't seen anything the contrary.
I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely. And so for the back half of this list, the grades that we're handing out, we didn't think about that at all. Like these, everyone in the last like 5 years, they're all just going to be incredible the whole time. Don't worry.
If you are under the age of 24, I can only assume you will be a Hall of Famer. I have no reason to believe otherwise.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm like, Charles Barkley was better than this guy. Charles Barkley better than Cade. Come on, dude. Okay.
I think not. But okay, we'll go C for Ben Simmons again, mostly because of longevity. The peak is there, but you look at him next to somebody like Cat, just couldn't do it long enough. Not really his fault, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Okay. Two solid ones so far for sure. 2017. This is
another solid one.
Yeah. Well, I know the Sixers got back-to-back number 1 overall picks, and so
did they?
Like,
were they a dynasty?
Well, yeah. They drafted Embiid, one of the best players in the league, one of the like really best centers that we've ever seen. And even though he wasn't healthy for a long time, they got back-to-back number 1 overall picks in back-to-back years. They used those effectively, and they've won 3 straight titles.
Surely they surrounded their maybe most talented player of the last 40 years with 2 other stars, right? With those picks.
Yeah. Markelle Fultz.
Markelle Fultz is here for 2017. What grade are we giving Markelle Fultz?
I gave him an F. It's not his fault. It's not his fault. And it's not the Sixers' fault either, because like him as a prospect, I'm not a guy who does a ton of scouting or anything, but I remember him as a prospect at Washington.
They were saying he's Damian Lillard.
He's Damian Lillard if he like it's like the Mike Korzemba thing, where it's like Dame with a 40-inch vertical. Like he was so athletic, and his jump shot was so like imagining in retrospect what would happen to his jump shot, it's unthinkable. Like it's crazy that he went from that good at jump shooting to being completely unable to shoot the basketball. So yeah, F.
We gotta go F.
A heartfelt F, a sad F, heavy hearts.
I say this with a heavy heart, with the utmost respect for what could have been, the utmost sympathy for how what could have been never happened. We gotta go F. He never really established himself as a starter. He has a couple years, really the last like 2 years with the Magic, where a lot of NBA hipsters were like, Markelle Fultz can do some things. He deserves a spot. Beginning of this year, everyone's, why isn't he on a roster? It's hard to roster a point guard who can't shoot, who isn't a humongous A+++ defender. Yeah. It's just hard to fit you in the modern NBA. He did the best he can. I respect him very much. He found a role for himself despite the jump shot stuff never coming around for all the reasons it didn't. But for number 1 overall pick standards, it's got to be F.
Yeah. I mean, at least number 1 pick in the NBA, you get a couple $1 million. It's different.
Yeah, shout out.
Flaming out.
He got a second contract.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay. I really don't have that many thoughts about him, because it's just like as opposed to this next guy, Markelle Fultz never really like featured in any big moments or any important NBA history stuff, as opposed to 2018's number 1 overall pick.
Many thoughts. Yeah. What are you grading? DeAndre Ayton.
I gave him an F as well, and I'm never like it's tough, because like if I'm going back to that idea of like, did you set our franchise in a positive direction? Absolutely not. I feel like taking him and like the path that his career took, and maybe you could blame some of it on Monty Williams. That pick kind of locked them into the big 3 thing they're in now, where they have like this talented trio starting next to Yusuf Nurkic, and they're just kind of like screwed for the future, because if they hit on that pick, then you have a really talented 27-year-old next to a really talented 27-year-old in Devin Booker, or whatever age Booker is at this point. But yeah, I gave him an F. The talent, we clearly saw more production than Fultz, and
a little bit.
He was like 18 and 10 off of Chris Paul. He was good. He had a couple good years. He was physical against Jokic in the playoffs. Like, he's talented.
We have to factor into our grade. We have to factor in the fact that he could have been Luka Doncic, that he should have been Luka Doncic, that all signs pointed to the fact that this team is deploying Luka Doncic's coach from overseas, and yet they still did not pick Luka Doncic to pair with Devin Booker. And that has nothing to do with Ayton. I don't care. I'm only human. I cannot divorce that from my brain. That inherently makes it a bad pick. You add on to the fact that he had all the physical talent in the world and seems to be that his only goal was to get a goddamn second contract. And as soon as he secured that and got traded to the Portland Trailblazers, his effort disappeared. He's the most lackadaisical, low motor player I've ever seen. There was that one year where he played against the Lakers in the playoffs and gave Anthony Davis the work. And we were all like, hey, man,
my God, he's here.
Ayton has arrived. Dominating is here. And where did he go? Where is Dominating? Put him on a milk carton.
Yeah, it's tough. Because even like when you said people assign personality things with the whole Ben Simmons pick, even if we ignore all of that with Ayton, which there have been a ton of different reports about, and even some back and forth stuff on social media with, like, Devin Booker had that quote where he's like, I just want him to try that hard every night, when he like came out and really went hard against the Suns. I even ignoring all of that, just looking at the on the court product, to have probably like a top 3 athlete as far as 7-footers in the league go, like just insane 1% athleticism, be healthy the whole time, never really struggle with health to like a serious degree, at least in Phoenix, and to have the effort shortcomings that have limited him throughout his career in terms of like not boxing out, not wanting to rebound hard, never setting screens, not really being like a hustle guy, having the potential to be an incredible defensive anchor, but never really locking in on that end of the floor. That's
you said
almost.
Hold on. Let's recap everything you just said. Doesn't box out, doesn't block shots, doesn't rebound, doesn't score, doesn't set screens, doesn't pass the ball. What does he do?
Mid-range dude, the mid-range jump shot with Deandre Ayton is so disgusting.
It's fucking filthy.
The elbow pull up off of like a point guard pick and pop thing. It's so disgusting. And he was a good lob threat. He was a great lob threat for a long time. Like there are a few, and that's what I'm talking about. When you say progress isn't linear, you might be peaking at 21 years old or whatever. There were those moments where it was like, holy shit, he's 21. And he's averaging 18 and 10, and he looks like this, and the Suns are winning 55 games. The future is here. And he was so good back then that the talk was like, okay, they missed on Luka, but it's still like he's good enough to be like, we're fine with it. It happens. But now that we've gotten more time since the draft and everything, you're not fine with it. It doesn't happen. I'm giving it enough.
Part of me, like, he's been in the worst situation in the world since getting to Portland. They are an unserious team. They are poorly coached. They have the worst roster construction ever. Part of me thinks I can fix him. If I was a GM, not for his current payment because he has a nicely paid contract. But once this deal is over and I can get him for cheap because he hasn't earned anything more than a minimum at this rate, once he costs like mid-level exception money, I could fix him. I'll put him in a good structure. I'll give him a real point guard again that can set him up, a real coach that can hopefully fire under his ass and make him try to earn another payday. I feel like there's a world where he could still provide some value. But the fact that we're talking about providing value and proving to be a starter for a number 1 overall pick, I'm not going to argue that he should be F tier. If you want to say that, you can do it. I won't be mad.
Yeah, I get there's angles where it's like, well, F should be reserved for the Markelle Fultzes, who we never see at all. But he's
just so disrespectful to the game that like he can put him in F.
It's just so, it's frustrating in a completely different way to see a guy be healthy, have the tools, and not pan out for controllable reasons, as opposed to not panning out because he never plays.
It's one of those things where you hear dudes say like, if I was 7 foot, I'd be in the NBA easily. And you see him not doing it, and all those guys at home on their couch are like, oh, it should be me.
It should be me.
Not him.
Yeah. I'm sure, guys. I'm sure. Guy who started lifting weights for 5 days at the beginning of January, you'd be in the NBA for sure, man. You wouldn't just be like a tall cashier or something. You'd be in the league. Yeah.
Tall cashier.
Yeah.
You
All right.
running that cubicle.
Exactly. Can I get a big cubicle? My neighbor keeps staring over at me because he's 7 feet tall.
Oh my god. The ability for the male ego to assume their athletic abilities being greater than they are is undefeated.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the exact same thing as like, yeah, if I played Caitlin Clark, I'd fucking smoke her. Dude.
I'll put her in the post.
Yeah, she'll score a couple, 11-6. But come on, dude, I'm big, I'm strong. She's a girl, so obviously I'd win. It's the same exact fucking thing.
The whole time 2 plays in, their ACL is fucking blown to smithereens.
Whoa, too much.
Oh, I hit a sore spot for you? I hit a sore spot.
Wow, he's ableist. That's crazy,
For those who don't know, Jack accomplished a very rare accomplishment in the past 12 months. A civilian with a torn ACL. He found a way to do it while not being a professional athlete. He found a way to blow out his ACL. It's a glorious accomplishment, I might say.
I should have just gone home. I was 3-0 at the park. I was on a win streak. I should have just gone home, man. Hey, that's the lesson. Quit while you're ahead, ladies and gentlemen. All right. So we're done with Ayton. Who's after? Go.
2019. Oh. What grade are you giving Zion Williamson?
Okay, so here I feel like as we're getting to the part where I still technically qualify him as a young player, so the potential aspect intrigues me a little bit.
You got about 6 months left of being young.
I know, it's right under the wire. I gave Zion Williamson a B, 2-time All-Star. When he's been on the floor, truly one of the most transformational scorers I've ever seen as far as like bending a defense goes. No matter who you put at the rim, he's going left and he's finishing the layup. That's just how it feels. But then the other side of this coin is very clear.
He's not healthy ever. It is what it is.
Yeah. Like he's 300 pounds and he explodes into the stratosphere. His body breaks down.
I'm very aware that Zion Williamson has not been a good star for the New Orleans Pelicans. He's not been available, not been reliable, has not been hardworking, has not simply wanted it more than the rest of his peers. Very aware of that. Nevertheless, I cannot give up on the Zion Williamson experience. I have Zion Williamson Stockholm Syndrome. I'm fully Z-pilled. I'm never going to give up on him because when I watched him play in 2021, in that second year where he was an all-star, averaging 27 points on like 63% true shooting, I felt like I was watching 2009 LeBron, and I can't get the image out of my head ever.
Yeah, it's just sad. And again, this is like, I won't go into the personality things. I won't go into like him.
We can do it a little bit. They just suspended him for being late to meetings over and over again. At a certain point, when there's smoke, there's fire. And I think Zion's one of the ones where we're not reading into it. We're not assigning things like we know him. It's been well reported and well documented by the fucking team now that he has not been the most hardworking guy in the world.
Yeah, but he's so sick when he plays.
He jumps so high.
The cool factor, like the thing about Ayton is like, yeah, you're pretty cool when you play, but it doesn't outweigh the off court issues or whatever. Yeah. But Zion, dude, you could hit me with a car, but if the 360 windmill that he pulled off the first game back the other day, I was like,
you can hit me with a car. I'll forgive you.
We're here. We're here,
Zion.
Dude. Yeah, I mean, B. For me, it's B. I get it if someone wants to go lower. But at the same time, if someone was just purely looking at games played, I'd get it if they wanted to go higher. Like, he is so good when he's on the floor.
I think he would be A off of ability. Games played lowers him to B. And behaving like a loser lowers him to C.
Okay, that's fair.
I think, again, if Cat is a benchmark, is B as being a model citizen #1 overall pick who does enough, isn't a disappointment, but isn't quite amazing. You can't look Cat in the eye and being like, yeah, I think Zion Williamson deserves the same praise you do.
Model citizen is so funny, dude, because it's like, yeah, Cat for 10 years has done nothing but keep his head down, and everyone's like, you loser, you're a soft baby. DeMarcus Cousins dunked on you, dude. You're a weenie. Jimmy owned you in that scrimmage that one time, and then Zion is like doing all this insane shit off the floor, and people like you and me are just like, yeah,
dude rocks.
He's pretty good though. He's pretty good. Yeah. Shout out to Zion, I guess.
I won't even pretend to be unbiased. You know what they call LeBron fans bronze sexuals? I'm a Z-sexual. It is what it is.
I'm a Zionist, baby. No, just kidding, everybody. Bang!
God forbid.
All right, we got to keep it pushing.
He's like, cut that.
Get the cameras. Yeah. So Zion, I'm cool with C. I truly
clip that and text it to you. You get that tweeted at you. You're like, oh no, my life's over.
Man, whatever. Go ahead, cancel me. Whatever, I guess. No. That's the problem. That's the problem. Is I get one joke like that rolling, and I'm just like, I could say whatever, really. Like,
maybe I am Shane Gillis, really.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe I have the same guy who literally got fired from SNL. Maybe I should do that. Maybe that should be my career approach. Oh man,
I think you get fired for. Never mind. Next up, 2020. Next topic. I will say one thing. There's been trade rumors recently that maybe Zion Williamson isn't going to be the Pelicans forever. And, people, they have a chance to get the number 1 overall pick. So they might be able to draft Cooper Flagg to be their franchise power forward. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine a world where they trade Zion?
Yes, there is a world where Zion gets traded, for sure.
So if there's a world where you might get traded in like year 4 or 5, then yeah, you can't be ranked that high. It's going to be C tier. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, let's talk about that real quick. Because I think if he does get traded, that's like very interesting. So yeah. Little game. Let's play a little hypothetical. A little mind exam. No, I don't know what the fuck I was gonna say there. A little
thought experiment.
Thought experiment. There it is.
Yeah.
I was like, what word goes before experiment?
Boom. Steve Nash.
Let's have a little thought experiment.
Setting them up. Yeah.
If Zion Williamson is available on the open market, which team would you want to see him traded
to? This is tough because I don't think anybody realistically would pull the trigger on it. I think there's just too many variables. But I think an interesting one is the Miami Heat, where
he needs to go to a team that is boot camp. He needs to be forced to do push-ups every day. Yeah. He needs to be forced to fucking drink smoothies only. They're gonna have his ass in the gym.
I just got a premonition. Zion walks into camp and Pat Riley's like, "You're disgusting. What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "Damn, okay.
Where's your self-respect?"
Yeah, exactly. But no, I think the Heat with their whole "we don't do rebuilds" agenda and everything. Zion is clearly, when he's on the floor, the caliber of player that you could accept back and expect to still be a competitive team, especially with how Hero's been shooting the ball and everything. And then Jimmy on the other end for the Pelicans, I think his money off the books. You have Trey Murphy, you have Herb Jones, you have Cooper Flagg. You've pivoted into an interesting young team. You don't have your picks because of the DeJounte Murray trade for a little while, but yeah, if the Pelicans did want to pivot into that era, I think moving for Jimmy and letting Jimmy walk, letting that contract expire, could be an interesting path forward.
Yeah, or just a 3-team trade where they send him elsewhere. I don't even think they necessarily would keep Jimmy, but just in general, I think Zion, he needs to go to a place that forces discipline into his life, that has the necessary support system around him to get the best of him and take away his worst habits. The Miami Heat are the obvious version.
Nice.
Another team that might have what it takes to save Zion and get the best of him. San Antonio Spurs.
Oh,
maybe they look at him and be like, "Fuck no, not touching him with a 40-foot pole." But if they look at him and say, "I can fix him," obviously there'd be nothing better in life than seeing Zion play next to Wemby when healthy.
Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. It'd be fun. It'd be exciting.
It'd be
as
amazing.
A guy who's I'm tying my ship to Wemby's literally going to be the GOAT. I would not want this to happen.
You don't want to forsake him?
Yeah, because I just feel maybe if it costs one first rounder, fucking
pull
the trigger and see what happens. It'd probably be cheap. Yeah. But if you have to give up serious, if you have to gamble the Wemby era on whether or not Zion's going to pan out, that scares me so much.
This is only on the assumption. This is only on the assumption that he's very cheap and you're buying in crazy low and saying that the ceiling is simply worth it if it's only going to cost me a first round pick and salary. Then you have a ton of picks already as a Spurs right now. You can take that risk because if it hits, if you're the team that gives Zion Williamson the second chance and he shows you what he's shown you in Spurs for the Pelicans, you're a genius. Suddenly you're the best GM of all time. Suddenly you're Jerry West and you built together the best duo we've ever seen.
Yeah, that would be, it would be that's one of those moves. It's a bullshit move where it's in 90% of the time it's a miss, but that 10% of the time where it's a hit, you're
goated.
living in the you're living in the timeline where you're literally like the smartest, most like greatest GM of all time. Like nobody could match you.
And which GM doesn't want to be seen as a genius? I'm sure they all would love that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fun.
And is there any other teams that you think would make even a little bit of sense?
Genuinely, no. Like, just in terms, like, it's so scary already to be in that situation from the Pelicans' perspective. I don't know anybody who looks at Zion and they're like, we can afford to take him on. If you're a young rebuilding team, you probably don't want to bring in a guy who is you either going to be the focal point of your team or won't exist at all. And then if you're like a competitive team, you don't want to bring in a guy who you don't know is going to be available in like
And then there's teams like the Bulls who just have absolutely nothing going for them, and like, why not? You might as well swap him for Zach LaVine. You might as well. Your only goal is to put butts in seats. Zion will put butts in seats for those 18 games every half of the year.
Oh my God, the Bulls would that makes sense. They literally only care about attendance, so yeah, that would work.
If there's anything that Zion can do, it's sell some tickets. Yeah, just make sure his low management as he plays the home games.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's move on to the next player. 2020, we got Anthony Edwards. What are you grading him?
I give an A+ very easily for me. For 99.9% of drafts, you would be incredibly happy if you walked away with this guy at the number 1 overall pick. We were having genuine, like, is he top 5 conversations in the playoffs last season. I think that was a bit of an overreaction. But at the same time, for a guy who's 23 years old and not necessarily in a situation that, like, maximizes his talent. It's not a terrible team by any stretch of the imagination, but navigating the Randall trade, all of that stuff, he is doing the best with what he has. And I think
he's doing the best he can.
Yeah, if you got him into a situation where maybe he didn't have to make really hard passes, they couldn't double him all the time, and he could be like a slasher who gets to the rim and uses his jump shot ability as like a supplement to that, I think we'd be seeing a guy who it's like, oh, this is literally Michael Jordan. Oh my God. But in this situation, the numbers look worse. The performances look worse. I'm willing to look at the whole picture of what he's been. A+. Incredible pick so far.
Easy A. Listen, I understand the year has not gone well for the Timberwolves, and in turn, reputationally, it has not gone well for him. Mm-hmm. Do people understand that he is currently the best three-point shooter in the NBA right now?
Yeah.
And he's shooting 44% on pull-up threes, 8 a game on pull-up threes.
That's so sick.
That he has literally morphed from being the most mind-boggling downhill driving athlete we have in the NBA, the best dunker in the NBA, to being also the best shooter. Once this team figures it out and they really like put a team around him that once again makes sense, and he isn't asked to be the point guard, asked to be the number 1 perimeter defender, everything at once, and he can just be the fully unlocked version of this downhill demon who can also hit every single step back three he wants, we're going to be looking at a top 5 player eventually. Right now, he's supposed to improve, has to make his reads better, has to get a better opportunity to showcase his skills and less of his weaknesses. But again, he has a young player boost, so we can still talk about the future and theoretical. Easy A.
Yeah. It's like the 3-point thing is genuinely so insane that like if you told me last year he's the best volume 3-point shooter in the league, I'd be like, well, he's the MVP probably.
Yeah.
He's like
so
he's
the
best player in the world, and that hasn't been the case. But the fact that that's in his bag now, if you just like look back to what he's proven to be able to do without that in his arsenal, the sky is the limit. Clearly, it's crazy.
It's like just imagine what it's going to be once everything else bounces back to normal. We're going to be looking at a ridiculous player.
All right. A+.
And dude, before he got the 3-pointer shot, he was already getting fucking Michael Jordan comparisons. Like that was like half meme, half serious. I don't think everybody that said that was joking.
No, not in the very. I mean, I'm 100% confident that many people were being serious with the MJ comparisons, and part of it is like he has crazy aura, dude. He's got motion, like whatever you want to call it. Like
he's got motion.
He is a player that it's very easy to get swept up in the moment around. Just like with all of the highlight plays, with all of the quotes that he has, he's a very charismatic guy in front of the camera. And with the playoff success that like, it wasn't just a byproduct of him. It was a byproduct of the Wolves like making moves, putting a roster together that could be spearheaded by him. But at the same time, it really did just kind of look on paper like, oh, Ant showed up. Now they're in the Western Conference Finals. And so for a lot of like more relaxed people, it's easy to look at that and be like, well, yeah, he's the reason they made it and everything.
You said that goddamn smile.
he's handsome fella. What can I say? You know? Yeah. Shout out to Ant. Yeah.
All right. So next up, we got 2021 with Cade Cunningham, a player who's recently this year really making the leap, finally being a young star we hoped he could be. Now that he finally has competent team around him, he can finally not be swarmed with the worst spacing in the world. He has a better coach. He's living up to the hype.
Yeah, I gave him a B. And I think I'm basing that on, I'm trying to be, if he realistically follows the career arc that he's on right now, if we don't get like another really substantial leap from him and he just kind of stays at this level that he's currently playing at for 7 or 8 years, I think you're happy with that. That's like a Karl Anthony Towns caliber pick. But at the same time, he did just get to this level, and a lot of it is predicated on skills that I don't know if, like, he's an incredible pull-up three-point shooter right now, and that's made his entire game, like, explode into an all-star level. Is that going to be something that's consistent throughout the rest of his career? Is he going to keep, like, kind of the insane pass turnovers that have plagued him throughout the first several years of his career? Are those going to remain down? Is he going to remain, like, an efficient on-ball playmaker? All that stuff. I've loved Cade the whole time, but it's very recently that some of the questions around his career have become clearer answers for me. Yeah. And we don't have a huge sample size to make this pick on.
Yeah, I think right now he's B. I'll say the same thing. Trending towards A. I think he's made scoring improvements. He's still not a very good rim scorer. He still relies too much on trying to do bully ball in the post. He still needs to improve his handle so he can get deep paint touches and really use that size in a more like dynamic fashion, driving to the rim and pick and roll. Once that rim scoring comes around and is above average, he still shoots like 55% there. It's extremely league average. If that part of his game can come around and he can have a well-rounded scoring arsenal to go with the playmaking that's taken a huge leap this year, that's going to be an A-level player. That's going to be a guy that can maybe be top 10, top 12 in the league one day. But right now, he's like earned his way into top 25 players in the league talks, which is still very, very good, very, very respectable compared to where he looked the past couple of years. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself and end up regretting it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with the mid-range thing, or I agree with the rim finishing thing. And I would point to his ability, like, I don't know. Sometimes when he drives, he spins back, and then you get like a post-up mid-range jumper.
Exactly. He loves hook shots.
Yeah, and he's really good at those, but they are tougher shots, and you do, like, I don't know, nerds like us kind of biased towards rim finishing, but if you're a pure hooper kind of guy, like if you're like a mid-range assassin, footwork, killer instinct, all of that kind of stuff, Cade Cunningham is, you should watch him. You should be up with him right now.
It's very pretty. It's cool.
They would call him an A, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. Again, he's great, but to be a top-level scorer, you can't do it without being very good at the rim. It's the most efficient place to score. There is nobody that's ever had like above a 60% true shooting and been bad at the rim. It's not possible unless you have fucking Steph Curry level shooting. But even he was really good at the rim. So I think it's a very necessary part to be like a top-end scorer.
Yeah, if he's gonna break into A tier, I would assume that's like the step forward. That because everything else is like if he was just solid at the rim right now, all the other aspects of his game, as far as like the last month and a half of basketball go, he would be like an all NBA level guy at that point. Yeah, like he's incredible. Still get there.
I'm not even saying he has to become a great rim scorer, because maybe that's just a flaw and that's fine. He could still be like an elite 3-point shooter, an elite passer, and a very good defender. That's still a great fucking player. So yeah, if he's this good and keeps going on a normal trajectory but doesn't become Shea at the rim, that's fine. At that point, it's just time. Let's see a couple all-star seasons, and then we'll give you A tier for sure.
Yeah. And it's also the Pistons, I think Cade has the capacity to be a really good off-ball player, and the Pistons haven't necessarily, like, there's not an on-ball guy, especially now that Ivy is out with the broken leg or whatever. So that's something that, like, if the offensive burden is lessened, you could see Cade take another step forward in, like, more limited possessions or touches or whatever. And that's just, like, a mystery at this point. We won't know for a while unless the Pistons make a move for somebody.
Yeah. And yeah, to TBD, I think the best case scenario for him is being the second best player on his team, which isn't to say that's not a slight or anything, but like if it's him with like a 2024 Anthony Davis, so you can have somebody to make his life easier, that's how you get the best of Cade. So he can really use his scoring in less of a I got to create everything way. It'll make him more efficient. His passing will shine if he has a real star to feed. We got to see that because I think he'll be really scalable with another star.
Yeah, I agree. So B right now, but we are getting into the young guys, so it's like, hey, who knows? Really?
Yeah, you can put Cade in A if you want to project and you're really all in. That's fine.
Okay, who's next? 2022.
2022. None other than mini LeBron James. We got Paolo Banchero in 2022. What are you grading him?
Calm down. Calm down.
I'm
mini
just saying,
LeBron.
in the same way that Ant is mini MJ. Paolo, everyone says they look at him, they see 2018 LeBron, same movement patterns. Obviously, not really the same player. I'm joking, not the same passer, but prototypical big forward who can play make, should be a very good scorer. He's learned this year to use his size and be a much better rim finisher. What we were just talking about, Cade Cunningham. Paolo's made that change this year. He's a good defender. Overall, fucking gigantic human being that knows how to use that size now.
I've always called him smart Julius Randle as far as like shot selection and stuff goes. Because the prime LeBron athleticism obviously isn't there.
Yeah,
he's a really good athlete, but incredibly agile, polished scorer for his age and everything. I wrote down A, and I think I'll roll with A. He's already been an all-star once, and like you said, the utilization of his size is the real concern that I had last year when he was literally like a 20-year-old. So it's not surprising that he took a big step forward in that regard. Him being able to be like, okay, I'm faster than everyone bigger than me, and I'm bigger than everyone faster than me, and really hammering home the combination of those two traits as opposed to just being like, I've survived at every level of basketball so far by being like a really capable, savvy, mid-range scorer kind of guy. It's great to have that in your bag, but as far as like 82 games in the regular season goes, I really like what he's displayed in super limited games so far this season.
Yeah, last year he was really oriented towards, I'm going to shoot over you, and the rim finishing numbers weren't great because of it. But you could see that he was going to make that over time. People just need to give him time, and they needed to not overrate what he was last year in his all-star year, but also understand they're right long-term, just give him time to get there. In the small sample size he's shown this year, he has gotten there. He is utterly dominant down low. You can't stay in front of him. He is a walking mismatch, and I think he's only going to get better. I think he's nowhere close to his ceiling. His frame and athleticism alone makes it so he can continue to scale everything up as he continues to get more and more physically imposing. Easy A to me.
Yeah, and it's crazy, like thinking he's only played like 7 games so far this season, but the 50 piece that he had against the Heat before the Heat were having this weird, confusing, gross season, nobody's having fun and only one guy's playing well there. before that, he gave them 50, and it was like, okay, Bam is always like a fringe defensive player of the year level guy, and Jimmy Butler, when he locks in, is one of the best like forward defenders in the NBA, and neither of them had anything for Paolo in that game. Like nobody could stay in front of him, and even when people got in front of him, nobody could really like do anything about his physicality in the paint. So that's like one of the most impressive scoring outbursts that we've seen so far this season from a guy who's is he 21 right now?
I don't even know. Young as hell. He's very young.
Yeah.
Regardless, and the best part
for a
about
guy
him
that
too,
young,
I think we haven't seen him and Franz because they both made leaps this year. I think they both became like next level stars. They both completely blew through what you thought they'd do before the season. We haven't seen them do that together yet. I have a feeling they can do it. I have a feeling they'll find a way to all mesh at the same time. Paolo's going to have a really good ability to play next to other stars because he can shoot the catch and shoot three really well, because he has the size to contribute defensively when he doesn't have the ball, because he can do on-ball and off-ball scoring. I think you could probably pair Paolo with almost any other star.
Yeah. There's a few I'd be concerned about because
Julius Randle.
Do think, jeez, like my goodness. But there's just a couple that like guys who have have to be in the paint. I think if you put him next to someone like that, you're not getting the most out of Paolo. But yeah, very versatile, very talented guy for his age. And I'm sure the Magic are incredibly happy. It's kind of like going back to the early Ayton days versus Luka. Obviously, Chet Holmgren is not a Luka level player, but if Paolo was worse, the Magic would be having some regrets about not going Chet Holmgren at that pick. But Paolo's been so talented that I'm sure all of Orlando is like, no, we're cool with Paolo.
Exactly.
Like it's a guy that we can move forward with. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Speaking of everybody being happy, where are we going with the 2023 number 1 overall pick, Victor Wembanyama?
Oh my God. Okay. I wrote down, what did I write down? A letter beyond S tier, beyond knowing or human comprehension is Victor Wembanyama at number 1 overall.
We're breaking into 8th-dimensional understanding of physics to understand how good Victor Wembanyama is as a draft pick.
Oh my God, he's so good, dude. And like, I don't care if it's Glaze. I'm like, genuinely, I would rather be early and overrate him than be late and be like, oh, he's like this level now or whatever. When I was talking earlier about Anthony Edwards, 99% of the time, that's you're cool with that pick. Victor Wembanyama is the 1% there where it's like, okay, we don't have a guy that we think is going to be top 5 in a few years or when we put the right pieces around him or whatever. We have a guy who is like undeniably, every time he gets onto the floor, we're like, how is this guy not top 5 right now? Like,
I think the expectations for Wemby weren't the expectations of most number 1 overall picks. The expectations were this man will alter the course of NBA history. And through 18 months, he has exceeded the hype of altering the course of the sport as we know it.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to live up to that hype because like I remember seeing Victor Wembanyama at 15 years old going against Rudy Gobert in like French national warm-ups and torching him and people being like, yo, this kid could really be something. And I've seen that with Imani Bates, with Nico Banyan or who I don't remember that guy, but like you've seen it with guys throughout the year who just don't pan out even though they were sick as hell at 15 years old. Wemby though, every step of the way has exceeded my expectations for him. And even so far this season, like month by month, it seems like he is just like progressing in all of the areas that are considered weak for him, whether it's like internal scoring. The first 15 games of the season, people were like, ugh, he's shooting too many jumpers. I remember seeing a tweet, what has been ingrained in my mind forever, where someone said the league should be happy he'd rather be Kevin Durant than Hakeem. And I was like, in my head, like, are you guys in fucking reality? If the best defensive prospect we've ever seen decides to try to be Kevin Durant on offense while being the best shot blocker in the world, that's insanity. And what do you know? The slow start naturally progressed to the mean. And here we are. Not only is he the best rim protector in the entire NBA, will be one of the best rim protectors in NBA history probably. He's the best stretch big in the NBA. He shoots 10 threes a game and it hits him at a good enough percentage that it warrants it. He shoots 80% at the rim. He can shoot a little bit. He can be a lob threat. You can feed him in every spot on the court while being the runaway DPOY. It is a truly, truly special progression as a shooter that has made everything come together. And now people say, I think he's on GOAT trajectory, and it doesn't sound crazy. Yeah, no, I mean, that's pretty much how, like, the whole three-point shooting thing, it was like, yeah, that's funny. That, like, it's funny because he was shooting 30% on him, and, oh, he's skinny. He can't dominate in the paint that you want a 7-footer to do. But now that he's, like, 44% on 10 a game or whatever it is, like, it's genuinely insane numbers. Now we get to the biggest moments of a game, and if he has the hot hand, he's 30 feet away from the basket, and you're like, there's nothing we could do if he wants to shoot right now, if he wants to rise up and hit like a three-pointer from the wing in the clutch. What can we do? Can we throw like a power forward on him who's mobile enough but like a full foot shorter to go out there and try to contest it? Yeah, I have no idea. And so, yeah, he's breaking basketball. It feels like one of the best number one overall picks of all time.
Yeah. And there's your Victor Wembanyama glaze. But I want to take it further. Obviously, he is the best player on this list. I want to talk about where he is currently right now in the league. Because about a month ago, I did a top 30 players ranking on the Deep 3, and I ranked him at 10. I have a feeling, I feel like he's better than that now. That was the week before Christmas. And, on Christmas Day, he came out and he obliterated the Knicks. He's continued to be amazing ever since. Let's play a little game. Let's make our own combined top 10 players in the world list. We'll take turns picking players, kind of like drafting a top 10. I don't know your list. You don't know mine. Let's see where Victor Wembanyama falls on that. Let's see who has the balls to pick him highest.
Okay. I mean, like if this is a game of chicken, I feel like I'll win, but whatever.
Okay.
Do you want to go first or you want me to?
Sure. I'll go first. Obviously, number one, best player in the world. It's no surprise to either of us. We're going Nikola Jokic.
Wow. I mean, it's tough to be the standard because now, like, I remember when Jokic started getting best in the world talks, and I was like, this is so cool. And now it's like, yeah, I mean, dethrone him. And like, really, in head-to-head matchups, Wemby's the only guy that I've been like, is he better? Look-key, this is crazy right now.
Yeah, it's pretty undeniable right now, especially with Embiid's legs failing him. The only argument is Giannis. It's Giannis or Jokic, and right now, Jokic deserves the nod. But Giannis isn't too far behind, but it's not that hard to go Jokic.
Yeah. And spoiler alert, at 2, I will take Giannis.
Surprise.
Surprise. It's just one of the best scorers in the NBA, one of the best defenders in the NBA, one of the best night-to-night, like, volume offensive engines. And even though there's been like a lot of ups and downs post Damian Lillard trade in Milwaukee, you've never felt like it's been the fault of Giannis. You've always felt like if he was a worse player, I don't even know where they would be. They like the only reason they're not completely lost is because he's like the second best player in the NBA, really.
I think Giannis hasn't gotten enough credit for adding more and more to his game and adjusting as he gets older. He's not as reliant on just like dunking on a motherfucker's face anymore. His mid-range game has come along. He's a lot more crafty finishing layups, so he doesn't have to dunk every time and risk injury. Everything has really progressed well, and I think some people thought he would fall off over time because the athleticism would go away and he wouldn't be the same when he can't jump over you. And I think he's done a really good job building out his game to kind of negate that as he ages.
Yeah. He'll always be 7 feet tall. He'll always be incredibly strong. And he'll always, like, he has insanely underrated touch for a big, strong guy. He can lay it up soft off the glass, no problem. Do not check the free throw numbers on that. Don't worry about it. It's fine. 60% from the mid-range, 58% from the line. Who cares?
Get over it.
Yeah, we're talking buckets. We're not talking free throws right now, man.
Number three. Number 3, I know he's had a slow year. I'm still going to go Luka Doncic. He didn't start off strong, then he got hurt. But I'm still picking him over any guard in the league or any of the other bigs left. He's outside of Jokic, he's the best offensive player in the world, I think.
I agree with that. And it's tough. It feels ridiculous to me that because he's had a funky 16 months where I don't really feel like he was 100% in the postseason last year. I don't feel like he's been 100% in any basketball that we've seen since then. And so it's been so long since we really got, oh my God, here's 73 points from Luka. Here's 50, 12, and 15 from Luka on great efficiency. It's been so long since we've seen that now we are defending his spot at 3. Like, oh no, I swear he's still number 3, guys. I feel like we'll get a stretch from him. If not this spring, if not in the playoffs, then maybe we'll get it next year, I don't know, where he is 100% good to go. And he really reminds us that, yeah, he is the best non-Jokic offensive player in the league.
Yeah. Okay. Who's number 4? This is where it can start to get a little debate.
Yeah. Oh, man. I'll go Shea here. One of the most dominant guard seasons that we've seen in a long time.
Then at 5, I'll go Jason Tatum. This is the tier right here. You can put him interchangeably, but I'm not mad at going Shea above him.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's 5 Tatum. I'm going Wemby at 6 then.
And already?
Really, I do feel like he is a comparable player right now to Tatum and Shea, just in terms of individual impact on a night-to-night basis. Like, it's Glaze, whatever. I don't care. Call it what it is. He is incredible.
Yeah,
and
you can't. It'll age well. You could put Wemby as high as 2, and you'll be wrong right now. But people will watch this video in a year, and it'll age perfectly. So it's not even a bad stance to take.
Just early, guys. Literally. Yeah.
You'll always be seeing the future if you glaze Wemby too hard.
All right. So Wemby, I'm going Wemby at 6. Who's at 7?
I think at 7 I'll go Kevin Durant. I think he's currently the best of the old heads right now. I think his offense and defense have both aged extremely gracefully. Can't stay healthy like he used to, but when he's on the court, he's still top tier.
Yeah. I mean, Phoenix is asking him to do impossible things on both ends, it feels like. And so the fact that he's not healthy doesn't surprise me that much. I had him at 7 as well. Yeah. I think, like, genuinely when he plays, MVP level player. They were like 12-0 for a long time with him in the starting lineup.
Yeah. Okay, well, then who's number 8?
Number 8, this is where it starts to get funky for me again. I wrote down Anthony Davis. I wrote down Anthony Davis at 8, and I'll stick with that. I mean, really high-level defender, really high-level offensive player. I think you start to see a bit of a playmaking drop-off once you get to, like, Anthony Davis from this top 7, but still really dominant interior scorer. And then, incredible defender who the Lakers don't necessarily surround with, like, the pieces for one of the best defenses in the league. So it's just more of an
if he had a good defensive
thing.
roster around him, he would have a DPOY right now. But he has another opportunity because he's been surrounded by garbage defensively.
Yeah,
okay.
Defensively.
Then at 9, I'll go the other Anthony. Give me Anthony Edwards. I know it hasn't been pretty this year. I understand the team's struggling. I don't think people comprehend that when the team starts to make sense around him, this man will have a 44%. This man will have a 40% 3-point shot to go with everything he does well. I'm comfortable keeping him top 10.
Yeah, and this is another one where you're like age will benefit it. Where it's like, people were down on Ant because of in this situation, and then the second one mysterious thing changed. I don't know what could change with the Wolves that would help that. But the second that got better, he was like back to being clearly one of the best players on the planet.
Yeah. History is not going to remember the 6 months where people said Anthony Edwards is overrated because he had to play with Julius Randle and Gobert. I'll sleep fine at night putting him at 9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that clip of him being like, they said I fell off on the baseline to like a reporter or whoever. That'll be used in edits for generations. So
Forever.
At least you got that out of it. All right, rounding out 10. I said Jalen Brunson at 9 actually, but he's 10 for us.
Honestly, so, I'm not. If you want to put Brunson over Anthony Edwards right now, I'm just not crazy. But I think the difference there is the defensive gap for me. I think Ant's a better defender when he's engaged. But Brunson is a much better playmaker. So if you want to put him at 9, I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, at 10 I put Brunson. I think it's just like when a guard is a mid defender, it's a lot easier for me to stomach. You don't have to justify it as hard as you do with, like, obviously Jokic is the big one, but when Cat plays poorly defensively, it stands out a lot as well. It's just easier to hide a bad defensive guard, and the offensive stuff that he produces, the consistency that we saw in the playoffs, even when the volume like spiked, it really impressed me. I love Brunson.
Yeah. Honestly, Brunson is like diet Shea. I don't think people talk about it, but the same things that Shea brings to an offense, the just unstoppable scoring, get into your spots and carrying an offense with your on-ball scoring ability. Brunson does that with like 5 less inches of height.
Yeah. And the Knicks have been incredible. And he's like probably had to alter his game the most in terms of last year. They were like, do everything for us. And now it's like, take a step back, just exist in a talented offense. And he's been incredible. Yeah,
he's had a couple struggling spots, but overall he's been just as good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. I'm fine with that top 10. That's nobody there is like, what the heck? What are you? Yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool with all those
faking
guys.
Reactions. You bet ants what?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I guess the big shock, Wemby, it's, bro, if we come back in 3 months, Wemby might be 4 or 5. I don't know.
I know. It's crazy. He's progressing. All right, back to our grading. We have one more pick to grade. The last one, we have really no sample size to go off of. What are you grading Zaccharie Risacher as a draft pick after 35 games?
Giant fucking loser, the worst number 1 overall pick of all time. No, I gave him a D plus, and I don't think that's any fault of his own. I think it's a combination of weak draft class that nobody could really like figure anything out about. There's not like a traditional number 1 overall pick here that a franchise is like. Even the franchises with no young players last year were like, we're probably not getting like our franchise cornerstone foundational piece in this draft. And then on top of that, the one guy who was really getting some buzz as like maybe he could be that in Alex Sarr refused to work out for the Hawks. And so they kind of just had to go a different direction. So I gave it a D plus. I think he'll be a good player. I just don't think he'll be like, he will be underwhelming as like a number 1 overall selection. I don't think. Yeah.
Maybe he can get to C. Maybe he has a good long career and he's a very good supplementary player. Maybe he is Harrison Barnes, which is a starter for a long time that has a ring that could be on the team and can complement stars. That's very possible. He can maybe beats the ceiling. Maybe if he just has a great role player life, that's fine. But you can't get too high when you're just. You look at him next to the other guys, and it's like there is a polar bear in Arlington, Texas.
Yeah, it's like when I ask myself, can he get to like Andrew Wiggins' All-Star season in Golden State? It's like maybe,
sure,
but like number 1 overall pick, that's a tough standard for me to be like maybe he could do that about.
Yeah, because if Wiggins was on this list, Wiggins would not be very high. Spoiler alert. So that's not necessarily the best company to keep expectation-wise.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm comfortable with all those rankings. Do you have any final thoughts?
I do not. Sounds to me like we just graded the last 10 number 1 overall picks in NBA draft history. It sounds to me like we got everything exactly right. And if you disagree, I'm sorry, but you're wrong.
Hey, if you disagree, write a dissertation in the comments. We read them all.
I do read them all.
If I have to click expand on that comment, I'll read the whole thing for sure, definitely. Yeah, but yeah, if you're mad, comment down below, and we'll fix it.
And there you go, man. And with that being said, we'll see y'all in a few days for the next episode.
Peace.